Welcome into this Photoshop tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. It's not 1, 2, 3, but part 4 of this 12-part How I Retouch Images in Photoshop mini tutorial series, all stemming from a video that I did a little while ago where I showed you just a general overview of the steps that I take in my retouching process. And today we're going to talk about retouching the eyes, lips, and cleaning up the eyebrows. And I'm also going to give you an action at the end of it so you can press one button and get all the layers that you need to do the eye retouch. If you have not been following along, I would highly recommend you go back to part 1 and see what all of this junk here means and everything that we've done to get to this point. And also, you can go and download this image so you can follow along. There's going to be a link down in the description you can follow. Get this image, follow along, and everything is peachy keen. So before we get started too, I'm selling a course all about how to retouch images and cover all kinds of other aspects of retouching as well. On my website, boom, a link just appeared in this video. You should go check it out. All right, so let's talk about retouching. Let's actually talk about retouching the lips first, because all I'm going to do, if I'm not making the lips more glossy, which I can show you how to do that, all I'm looking to do is remove blemishes, and there is just this little mark here on her lip, maybe a little mark over here. We've already set up our frequency separation. We talked about this in part 3, how to do that and why we do it and all of that. If you missed it, go check it out. We're going to use the healing brush tool, and we're going to have it set to sample current layer and just only current layer. I'm going to zoom in here on the lips, and I'm going to make my brush tool a little bit smaller using the square bracket key. Hold down Alt or Option to sample. I'm going to sample from right there on the lips, and I'm just going to paint right over that mark. Great, that knocks that out. There's a little mark there. Like I said, there's a little mark there. Cool, and that's all we want to do. I'm just looking to make sure that the lips look about right. In order to make the lips glossier or maybe not so glossy, what I would probably do is, I mean, I have a tutorial on how to make lips glossy, but you know what, for just so I can show you what I would do here, I'll show you. I'm going to create a new layer here. Just layer 1 is fine. In fact, maybe I'll double click and just call it, maybe I'll double click it and call it lip gloss or something like that. What I like to do, you can do this with the dodge and burn tool. If you fill this with 50% gray and set it to a blend mode of soft light, we're just going to use a straight brush because I'm probably not going to keep this effect. I just want to kind of show you what I would do. Hit the letter X to set white as my foreground color, just flipping foreground and background colors. I'm going to make this brush very small. Opacity is 100%, and you can see hardness is set to 0. All I'm going to do is I'm going to paint with the white brush over all of these little tiny highlights here on her lip. All right, and I'm just going to do the lower lip for now. Okay, and you can see that it's really just going to bring out the brightness of this part of her lip. And it's just those little trails of pixels. Hit them with the white paint as we are doing. All right, cool. All right, so that's not perfect, but it's good enough for now. I would create a new layer now, and I'm going to do the same thing but with black, and I'm going to hit all these darker areas. All right, again, this doesn't have to be 100,000% perfect. It's just there to create some contrast and really make the lip pop a little bit. Now, of course, you can do this with, actually, I'll name this lip gloss as well. Lip gloss 2. Of course, you can do this with the top lip as well. I'm not going to do it with the top lip because I just want to show you with the bottom lip. I'm going to set this to a blend mode of, let's try soft light, and I'll do soft light for the black layer as well. And what we want to do is apply a very, very light blur to both of these layers and then just shift the opacity around to until it kind of looks realistic. So we'll go Gaussian blur, and probably a Gaussian blur of like 1 pixel is all we're going to need. Same thing here for the black. So I just select the black layer, and now I can just apply the same Gaussian blur that I just applied. There we go, great. And at this point, I'm probably going to reduce the darkness of the blacks. The whites, actually, I kind of like them. Maybe I'll even set the blend mode to overlay to give it a little bit more pop. Just reduce the opacity a little bit. All right, and if we zoom out, you can see that what we've done is we've given a ton of texture to that lower lip. And actually, the opacity really needs to come down quite a bit on each of those. It's just meant to be a subtle effect. It's meant to give the lip a little bit more pop. Like I said, I'm just showing you for the technique. In this portrait, I actually kind of like her lips are fine the way they are. We don't really need to do much retouching. All right, let's talk about the eyes and retouching the eyes. So this is what I'm going to give you the action for, is retouching the eyes. The first thing that we're going to do, and actually this is not included in the action, is zoom in on the eyes, and I like to get rid of any sort of lines or veins. Sometimes if you're shooting with a full-frame camera, you can see the actual edge of the person's contact lens. You want to get rid of that if you can see it, and also obviously any big scraggly veins or anything like that that could be running across the eye you would want to get rid of. Her eyes are actually pretty clean, but there are a few marks. So again, on the high pass layer here in our frequency separation, I'm going to grab my healing brush. I'm going to zoom way in. You could just use the clone stamp as well. You want to make your brush very small, and we're just going to go ahead and just try to dust away any of those detail markings that we can see. Oh, there we go. Great. Okay, that eye is good, and I know we're zoomed way in here. Don't worry about that. I'm just going to get rid of that dark spot. And I mean, sometimes you're going to be working on somebody's eye, and you can really see a lot of like those big red veins. You just want to clean that stuff out, make their eyes look very, very clear. All right, great. So now that we've got it to this point, what I like to do is create 2 curves adjustment layers right there. Curves 1, curves 2. Curves 1 down here, I will name this Darken, and I'm going to name the one on top Brighten. And we're going to set the layer on top here to the blend mode color dodge. You're going to see it's going to really do some bad things. We can shut it off for the time being. Actually, we're not going to shut it off. Just select the layer mask and hit Command or Control I. It's going to invert the color white to the color black, and you can see hide the effect. All right, for Darken, we're going to set this layer to the blend mode of color burn. And it's going to kind of do the opposite of what color dodge did. It's going to really darken things. Again, select the layer mask, Command or Control I to invert it. All right, so what I like to do is I like to begin with the darks, and I zoom in on the eyes, and all I'm looking to do is intensify right around the edge of the colored part of her eye. All right, and maybe even the actual pupil itself. We're going to just darken that a little bit, and we may run a little darkness here along her eyelashes. So grab the brush tool, it's the letter B, right-click. We're going to make it a little bit bigger here. That's probably a little bit too big, so I'm going to size it down using my angle or my angle brackets, my square bracket keys. You can right-click again. We want this to be a very soft brush, so hardness should be set to 0, and a size of about 9 looks good for here. We want to set the opacity of the brush tool. This is important, to about 10%. 10% is going to be, it's just what I always use. It really gives you a ton of control, and we're probably still going to have to reduce the opacity of one or both of these layers. So set your foreground color to white, and let's begin here by painting along the edge of her eyelashes, maybe the bottom of her eye here. And if I shut the color burn layer off, you can already see we're making a difference, right? We've already darkened that stuff up. Let's paint right there over the very center of her eye. Make the brush a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to paint along the edge of the eye and just accentuate that dark edge, all right? And then I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to dab a little bit of darkness on both of the edges of the eye so as to make the eye appear even more round. You want to be careful that you don't do this too much, though, because you don't want to make it look like their eyes are literally popping out of their head, which you can do pretty quickly if you're not careful. All right, let's just accentuate this along here, the eyelashes, paint all around the actual eyeball, and you can see it's a really intense effect. We're going to have to back down the layer opacity. That's fine. Let's just darken there, darken there. All right, great. So if I zoom out just a little bit and we look at her eyes, we haven't done any of the brightening yet, don't worry. Okay, so there's before, there's after. You can see we've done a lot around the eyes. We're going to worry about reducing the layer opacity once we do our brightening here and kind of get the eyes set. The last thing is going to be sort of dialing things back and, punching things up a little bit. All right, so color dodge is all about brightening stuff up, again, with the brush tool. At this point, I would probably even use this layer to kind of accentuate the highlights here on the top of her eyelid that are catching that softbox, that light that we were using. Now, what I like to do is I like to paint just a little bit right around just outside of the iris. So on the whites of her eyes, just outside of the iris, I like to just do one stroke on either side. All right, it's just going to brighten up on both sides of her eye, and again give the eye good round shape. Also, we want to hit the top catchlight in her eye, or wherever the catchlight is in the eye. We want to brighten that up, give that a good little pop. And I also like to paint some light into the bottom of the eye. Again, you don't want to go too much light in the bottom of the eye. That can look bad. But by painting some light into the bottom of the eye, the colored part of the eye, and notice my brush is not as big as the iris. I just want to be in the middle of it, okay? What that does is it tends to give the eyes a lot of depth. So that's cool. All right, we can back out. And here you can see if I shut off both layers, there's what we had before, there's what we have now. Now, we haven't really retouched anything else as far as brightening, dodging, burning, anything like that, so the eyes may look a little out of place, but also we do need to reduce opacity a little bit. So let's reduce the opacity of the darks just a little. Take them down to, I don't know, 65, something like that. The brights, we can reduce them a little bit. I don't want to reduce them too much. We're actually still going to intensify the brightness of her eyes a little bit more. But one thing that you will need here, and you're going to want for most of your images, her eyes are pretty clear, but we're still going to do it anyway. I like to add a vibrance adjustment layer, reduce vibrance to around -50, -55, -52 here is cool. Select the layer mask. Again, Command or Control I to fill it or flip it to black. And then what I like to do is zoom in. And with the brush tool, I set the opacity of the brush tool to 50%. I like to paint over all of this pink stuff, including any color that would be on the whites of her eyes. So I just paint over the entire area of her eye that should be white. What it does is it just helps take away any kind of weird coloring. You can also, if the person's teeth are showing, you can just brush one pass over their teeth. Again, it tends to neutralize some color that's there, but still leave you with very realistic color. Again, it's just a vibrance adjustment layer with vibrance set to about -50. It does a really nice job, and then you're brushing with your brush tool set to an opacity of 50%. It just gives you maximum leeway to push or pull and make adjustments either on your adjustment layer or just with your brush tool in terms of controlling the level of desaturation that you're applying. All right, so the last part of this is going to be creating 2 new layers. So 1, 2, and I'm going to name the top layer Uppers. Oh, if I can spell uppers, let's try that again, uppers, and the bottom layer Lowers. Now what I like to do here, I'll begin with lowers. I like to zoom in on the eye, grab the brush tool, set the opacity of the brush tool back to 100%, right-click. I want the hardness of the brush tool to be cranked all the way up. We're going to apply the blurring with a Gaussian blur in just a second. And I like to let's go with like a 5-pixel, 100% hardness brush, see what this looks like. Yeah, 5-pixel brush is probably good. We want our foreground color to be white. And what I want to do is paint 1 white dot, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe a 5th dot right there, all right? So we're adding lower brightness into her eyes. So 1 right there, there, and there. Cool. Now, very important, I want to set this layer to a blend mode of overlay and not soft light. Overlay tends to sort of pick up, pull out, and accentuate the color in the layers beneath it, whereas soft light kind of lays the color on top over it, and in this case we just have white, so it tends to add more of a hazy effect to the eyeball. I want to intensify the color and contrast in the bottom part of this eye. Now we need to blur these dots a little bit, so let's go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And 1 pixel is probably not enough, maybe 2, maybe 2.8, almost 3. Yeah, something like that looks good. This is going to be different literally for every single image you do. All right, so you can see there's before, there's after. Again, we're going to dial back the opacity and pull this effect together in just a moment. All right, let's go up to uppers. And with your upper catchlights, you can do a number of things. You can draw over the catchlight with the lasso tool and fill it with white. You can use the pen tool and make a perfect path-based selection. Or you can just take your brush tool again and kind of size it up a little bit, so it's just maybe a little bit of the same size or just a touch bigger than your currently existing catchlight, and just paint over both catchlights. Now this one I like to set as soft light because I do sort of want this catchlight just to lay on top of the currently existing catchlight, and we probably also will blur this a little bit. Gaussian blur of 2.5 is probably a little bit too much. Let's go Filter. I undid that, Command or Control Z. Let's go Blur, Gaussian blur, and maybe something like 1 or 1.5. 1.5, let's go with that. 1.5 is actually too much. Let's go 1. Yep, 1 is good. All right, hit OK. And what we can do is zoom out. Now you can see the catchlight looks pretty good in this eye, but it doesn't look all that great over in this eye. There's some issues there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the catchlight from this eye to this eye. And here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a new layer between the uppers and lowers layer, and I'm going to call this right eye catchlight. All right, now this is just something that needs to be done with this image, but this is how I do it. I'm going to shut the uppers off so I can just see my catchlight without any kind of interference. I'm going to grab my clone stamp tool, set the opacity to 100%, and I'm going to right-click. I want my hardness to be somewhere between 50 and 75%. Reduce the size even more. We don't want the size to be much bigger than the catchlight itself. About 10 is probably perfect. All right, that's great. Let's zoom in on this eye over here. With our clone stamp tool, hold down the Alt or Option key and sample directly right in the middle of that catchlight. So bang, I got it selected. Come over here to this layer. Oh, well, we got to sample current and below layers. That's going to allow us to actually sample the catchlight. Let's try that again. Sample the catchlight. We're going to bring it right over here, and we're going to paint it right into place, something like that. Now, there's a little bit too much of her upper eyebrow that we're catching. Let's try painting that again. This time be a little bit more careful. There we go. Something like that is good. And now that we have that, when we turn the new upper on, it's going to blend a little bit more like the other eye. If you need to, you can just slightly reduce the opacity of the right eye catchlight. It's technically not a great thing to do, but sometimes you still have to do what looks good to the eye. Okay, so now on the uppers layer, if one catchlight is too powerful than the other, all you need to do is apply a layer mask, grab your brush tool, set your brush tool to like an opacity of 50, paint with the color black, right? I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I can just paint over that catchlight. That's my new catchlight, by the way, the uppers layer. You can see I just dotted it once, and it just really toned back that upper catchlight. So you can see, there we go. We have one catchlight in that eye, one catchlight in that eye. You know what, actually, I don't want to tone it down, because when I have both up, it actually looks good. I'm just going to delete this layer mask. Let's just choose to delete it, not apply it. And you can see now her eyes, I mean, they're jumping. They're jumping a little bit too much, though. So what we need to do is come in here. We've reduced the opacity of both of these a little bit. I'll probably reduce the opacity of Brighten a little bit more, and Darken also a little bit more. I'm also going to reduce the opacity of the lowers a little bit and of the uppers a little bit. All right, so I'm just looking to really tone this stuff back a little bit. All right, so now I can just hold down, select the lowest layer, the Darken layer, hold down my Shift key, select the uppers layer, hit Command or Control G, group it up, and I can just name this group I Retouch. All right, so very quickly we can look at before, we can look at after. So we can zoom in, we can check this out. There's the after, there's the before. So before, after, before, after. And you can, dial this in as perfectly as you want. It's all going to depend on the color of the person's eyes and the lighting conditions. But that's generally how I like to retouch my eyes and add depth to the actual colored portion of the eye as well. And looking at it, I think there's still a little bit too much opacity on those lowers. So let's reduce that to about 40%, something like that. There we go. Cool. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's talk about trimming up the eyebrows. Now, I'm going to go back to my frequency separation layer and just get rid of these couple strands of hair running into her eyebrow, because those are going to be problematic for us. So I'm just going to paint them away really quickly. There we go. Great one. And again, if you missed how to do the frequency separation, part 3 is all about the frequency separation. I don't really want to get into that right here, right now. All right, so what I like to do with eyebrows, we'll begin with this eyebrow here. I like to take the pen tool, and I just drag a path right along where the kind of the edge of the eyebrow is right now. So something like that. And then what I'll do is just go and make a big, whatever selection out here. So once I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this path as a selection by holding down Command Return. That would be Control Enter on the PC. And I want to nudge this selection downward. So I'm going to select my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to use my arrow keys, just bump it down just a little bit. You can see all we're looking to do is move over the area of the eyebrows that's kind of, I don't know, could be uneven. And I don't want to take away too much of the eyebrow. So also be careful of that. All right, that looks good, something right about there. The first step on the high part of the frequency separation is to grab the healing brush tool. Again, make sure we're sampling current layer. Hold down your Alt-Option key, we sample right here. Let's go ahead and just paint over. Now, what's happening here is we're just getting rid of the hair detail that's sticking out. If I were to deselect this selection, you could see that there's still like dark fuzziness sticking out. That's because we also need to clone stamp on the low layer to edit the color down there. Don't worry, we're going to do it in just a second. So here we go. We're just going to get rid of any kind of hair detail sticking out. Voila. Looking good, looking good. Cool. All right, so let me just deselect Command or Control D, and you can see it looks pretty bad because the edge is just not, the color of the skin is not running right up to the edge of the eyebrow. I'm going to undo to reload my selection. That's Command or Control Z, by the way. I'm going to select the low layer now, and I don't want to use the healing brush here. Sometimes the healing brush works, but to play it safe, we're going to go with Clone Stamp. Whoop. Clone Stamp, not Pattern Stamp. And with this brush, we want it to have absolutely no hardness. A size of, I don't know, something between 10 and 15 for this image is probably perfect. And begin with an opacity of about, let's go with 50%. All right, now here, let's just sample the current layer again. We're just working on the low layer. And let's go ahead and try covering up these colors. So we're just going to move in. I'm going to sample a lot because I want to make sure that I'm not sort of dragging color from way over here all the way up over to here, all right? And I'm seeing a little mistake that I need to correct here. But let me just finish doing this here. Great. Cool. So you can see we're going to get some of this color to put out here. All looks good. Go ahead and paint that in. Voila. All right, great. Now, one of the things that I was looking at here is I can see that skin pattern is just repeating a couple times. I don't know if I just did that, but let's just correct that real quick by just painting over that, making one of them a little bit more subtle, and maybe trying to make one of them disappear altogether. Let's go ahead. There we go, cool. Something like that, just make it disappear. All right, Command or Control D to deselect, and you can see we've just given that eyebrow a nice, sharp cut edge. Now, you're going to want to do the same exact thing to the other eyebrow, but the process is all the same, so I'm not going to waste your time and have you sit here and watch me do it. But you can see there we have gone ahead, we've cleaned up the lips, we've retouched the eyes, and we've trimmed the eyebrows as well. So we're moving along through our portrait retouch. This is going to be it for part 1. So for retouching eyes, for trimming eyebrows, and for retouching lips in Photoshop, and of course as part of the How I Retouch portrait retouch series, that's it. Get it? Got it? Good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one. Before you judge a man, walk a mile in his shoes. After that, who cares? Because you're a mile away and you've got his shoes. Go ahead and hit the like button for this tutorial. Also, subscribe to my channel. You never miss another video tutorial that I put out. Go ahead and subscribe also to my newsletter. A link just appeared in this video. I'll send you 30 free tips and tricks to working quickly in Photoshop and how you can work faster in Photoshop. It delivers instantaneously the moment you sign up. You can also follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'll see you guys in the next one.